Congratulations on the launch. I hope it was really successful. I'm enjoying the game. How was it like seeing your game finally be played by hundreds of thousands, if not millions of people?
It's been awesome. It's been really, really cool. I mean, it's one of those things where, um, I mean, it's not our first rodeo by any means, but it's definitely like this has been a lot of a passion project, and it's been, because we self-published it. That was like an extra layer of scary, but it was also an extra layer of kind of freedom, which was really cool because like it's just been, yeah, it's like my analogy is we're really great rock climbers, but this is the first time that we went up a mountain without safety gear. So it's been really exciting, but really scary at the same time.
Now, can you elaborate on that on this game, like in its early production? Was this something that Sony came to you? Did you come to Sony? Was this something your team had always wanted to do? Like, talk about the game's inception and how you came to get the license.
Man, so it was a long time coming for sure because when I joined IllFonic, Chuck really wanted to start doing publishing himself, and so we started talking about it. We started just like, I think it was honestly my first day of employment, and we're just throwing out IPs and just throwing out ideas. And of course, Ghostbusters and Predator came up, and I think like Jaws and a couple other that never, came. Well, we'll see. But it was just one of those things where Predator and Ghostbusters instantly just popped from what we were doing. Like we were like, we should do asymmetrical. This is a new genre. This is a really fun new medium in gaming, and so we connected with Fox quicker. We got the ball rolling with Predator really, really fast, surprisingly fast, and then Ghostbusters did come in when we started working on Predator. And I think it was like 2018 is when my first photo of us on the lot, next to the Ecto One happened. And the cool part was because we were working on Predator, I was constantly working on Ghostbusters on the side, just like what are we unable to do with Predator that we could do with Ghostbusters? What could we do to X, Y, and Z and all these other things? And so the Ghostbusters game has been, rattling around in documents for many, many years while we finished Predator. And then when we finished Predator, we wanted to support it and we wanted to do everything that we could. So when we've been working on it for about I would say like technically 2.5 years of like actual developer work and all of that stuff. So it's been a long time coming. I personally am a massive Ghostbusters fan. Like I saw it in the theater. My uncle was a big SNL fan, and so of course, he's taken his nephew to see Ghostbusters, and I forgot how old I was. I was pretty young because I remember seeing the trailer for Aliens and have no idea what the hell Aliens was, but it was clearly that crowd of like 80s nerds. Like it was like we all have the nostalgia, but like in 80s there was like it wasn't cool to be a nerd, but like people would go and see these movies and nerding out. And I remember the crowd just booming because of Aliens, and I had no idea what Aliens was. But then when the Ghostbusters logo came up, everyone was cheering. And I was just like, this was my first experience in a movie theater where, people are cheering at the beginning of the film. And I remember, he took me to like Indiana Jones, and he took me to a lot of other films back then that I was completely not ready for. And the librarian scene scarred me for so long that Ghostbusters was just one of those things where I almost became a Ghostbusters fan in order to battle the horror of the librarian and to battle my little kid like monsters in the closet. So I remember making a proton pack out of cardboard and broke a broomstick to make it into the thrower, and I remember just being a kid almost battling monsters in my closet as a Ghostbuster. And so this IP had such a huge thing in just spot in my heart. So when we were able to do Ghostbusters and we actually went to the lot and we pitched it to Ghost Corps, and Sony Pictures was really excited about it. And keep in mind it was like 2018, so Afterlife wasn't really done. There wasn't a lot of stuff. It was just kind of like the cultivation
before the resurgence. Yeah, before the resurgence of it all.
And so like it was really cool because Ghost Corps and Sony knew that we were fans, and we were pushing for the OG crew, or what we were able to do with the OG crew, and really bringing the original gear back, and all of that stuff. And so it was just this amazing chain of events. And then luckily enough, it was right when we were able to go like, okay, let's self-fund this, let's not bring it to a publisher, let's do it ourselves. And it was it's been crazy. It's been really crazy.
Elaborating a little bit more on that, it's interesting because the Ghostbusters IP, I feel, lends itself really well to video games. We haven't really seen a video game since 2009. We saw some mobile stuff, like little stuff, but like not a big game. Like, did they explain, if you're allowed to talk about it, did they explain like why the video game market has been so barren with Ghostbusters IP?
Well, I mean, I don't think it was just Ghostbusters IP. It's like we didn't trust IP games up till about 5-6 years ago. Like, IP games were supporting a movie. Like I've witnessed the IP game hustle where it's like, someone would come to someone and say like, hey, we've got 16 months to get a game out that's supporting this movie, and they're like, okay, quick, just put it out. And you don't think of like massive game studios that go and make something amazing with it. Like, sure, the Lord of the Rings game and some Star Wars games were great, but there's been a lot of just kind of just put it out and just get it out for the movie. And so
good ideas, not enough time to complete the ideas.
And so I think that we didn't see a lot of IP games, not only Ghostbusters games, so I think that that's kind of the state of the game industry that we had. So now I think that we're going to see a shit ton of nostalgia horror games and nostalgia IP games, and I personally, I think that we've done what we've done, and we'll see what we do in the future. But like, I'm excited to see what other people make out of it's all about making great games, and if it's connected to an IP, then that's cool. But it is just one of those things where I think the industry is constantly shifting, and I think that we're gonna see a shift into like a ton of horror games and a ton of IP games coming out, connected to things.
And then speaking of, I want to talk about your early game concepts of this Ghostbusters originally, because you've taken this formula that's people have realized and turned it on its head, right? Like, the ghost can't really die. There's no health HP for the ghost. Tethering only like slows it down. There's like it's almost counterintuitive because you want to shoot the ghost, right? But then like you need to throw the trap down first. It took me a while to get used to that. Talk about how
and
that
you're a
evolved
Ghostbusters fan. You understand the mechanics of Ghostbusters.
Like, oh wait, I can't shoot it. I got through the trap down first. Can you talk about some of that, like how that evolved as you were building this game?
Well, I mean, the crazy part is like when we worked on Predator, it was like, okay, this is the scene that we're gonna attach to, and then when we started working on Ghostbusters, we attached to the hotel scene in the first film, where it's like you're split up, you're looking for it, one of you get slimed, you come together and you work together to trap it. And so when we started working on this, I mean, this is our third asymmetrical game. We learned a lot with F-13, we learned a lot with Predator, and then with this game we learned a lot. But I think that the first two games we allowed ourselves to understand like a lot of those elements, where Predator F-13, Jason was never able to die, but Jason could get really bullied. He could just get bullied and knock down a bunch. Predator, the Predator could easily die real quick. So we took all those elements and we're like, okay, so the ghost is already dead. So the ghost has this mechanic. The Ghostbusters have these tools that were set in the 80s by the creators of it, that really thought of ghost hunting as like, it wasn't just a matter of, I guarantee if they were to do it now, it would just be action explosions and multiple Stay Puffs, and it would just be like just dissolving the ghost all the time. But they thought of that, and I think that Dan Aykroyd's history of ghosts and all of that kind of came to this realization of like, okay, you need to trap it, you need to do these things. And so when we started looking at Ghostbusters the game, I was like, okay, we need to do what this is. And it lent itself because the Ghostbusters never die, the ghost never dies, and so it makes it so it's a lot more friendly to kind of come and discover, versus like, oh, I'm playing the game, oh, this thing just kills me and rips my spine out. And it's like okay, I guess I need a matchmake again. And so Ghostbusters was definitely this different asymmetrical vibe than I think any other game, because it's all just about one person going and killing these people versus one person needing to evade these people. It's definitely more like a hide and seek game. It's definitely a lot more of this completely different style of asymmetrical that you haven't seen. And my analogy is like when people say, oh, you've done all of these asymmetrical horror games, you've done all these, what makes this different? I feel like asymmetrical, just like multiplayer, red versus blue style multiplayer is, different styles of bands. It's like, it's kind of like saying, heavy metal is Metallica versus Aerosmith, and they're not heavy metal, but people say that's heavy metal. But they're so different. Like, it's the same style of things. They still have the same guitars. They have still the same number of people, but it's completely different. It's not the same. It doesn't have the same people, fan base, anything like that. So with asymmetrical, I feel like we made a new genre of that asymmetrical thing where it is quick to jump in. You're there for, like, even if you're terrible, you're not going to get completely thrown out in the first few minutes. You're able to kind of learn the game and progress. And then even the Ghost, which is normally scary for people to play as the one versus many, because it's so difficult and hard, you're at least able to get these elements. And so that's why we did the rifts, for example, where the rifts are there to essentially make the game not be able to go into a instant death within like 3 minutes. Like we saw that happen so much in our previous games where the game would end super, super quick. And so with this, at least if you're not an amazing ghost, you're able to go in, kind of explore. If you get trapped, you're coming out of another rift. If you are able to evade, they need to hunt those rifts. So there's a lot of those elements to it. But then also, as you learn and you become better, you can use those rifts. You can the ghost can actually pop that rift to make the building haunted quicker. So you have those elements that are completely different layers that you don't see in any other asymmetrical game, because it's just, very cut and dry. Go kill, go survive, and do these things. And so I'm really proud of it. I'm really proud of it. But the crazy part that, like, right before we shipped, I started thinking about, I was like, this game was designed in the 80s. This game was designed by, the crew, and how they made an asymmetrical game before they knew about multiplayer, before they knew about, three-dimensional games, before they knew about connecting online. And we just took it and deciphered it and brought it over to, contemporary video gaming. And so it is, for me, it is shocking that, one, multiplayer has been around so long. Two, like, there was that heyday era, and honestly, like, I remember when the 16 game got announced and there was multiplayer, I was like, oh man, I wonder if someone's going to be the ghost. Like, it kind of just like zapped me in the brain when I heard about it. And when I saw it, I was like, okay, cool, that's what you expect nowadays. It's definitely Gears of War. But that could have been done way back then. And so to me, it was really interesting, because, like, even when we brought it to Ivan and we walked him through it, we storyboarded a game match, and he would stop us and go like, okay, so who's this guy? And I was like, that's your buddy. And he's like, wait, so all of these people that are playing, they're my friends online? It's like, yeah. And he's like, who's the ghost? It's like, so one of your other friends online, or a stranger online. And I think that he was like, why haven't we done this? He's like, this is crazy. Like, this is really cool. And, he once he got it, he was like, this is rad. And, it's really sad that we lost him. But like, he got it. And it was really, really cool to be able to at least be able to be in as many phone calls as we were able to get on with him. It was just really, really awesome to be able to present to him, like, this is something that you made, so long ago. We took this and made it into a game, and it was just like, he really got it, and it was really, really cool.
Like I said, like, I've really been enjoying the game. I love all the design specs. I love all the stuff that's coming that Jordan talked about on the live stream. One thing I'm curious about
is just a patch. That's the crazy part.
It's a big patch, big quality of life patch.
Yeah.
One of the things I'm curious about was, like, was the ghost at any point in your early designs able to go through any wall? Because now you have the wall portals, but did you originally have the ghost be able to go through any wall at will?
No, because it's kind of there was a game 100 years ago that was announced called Black, and they said that you were able to shoot every single wall down and do all of this stuff. And what it was, the idea is really cool in theory, but if the ghost could go through any wall, you would just be like constantly going, around walls.
Going around.
Yeah, and so like it just made it so it's like it was just one of those things where we thought about it and it was like, that's gonna be bad, because like not only that, but like if you go through any wall, there's walls that bound the map, and then how do you do that? You make it go around the other side of the map. It's like, oh well, now the ghost is just bending dimensions and time, and so it's just one of those things where we specifically chose those pieces. My level designers are pretty rad, and so like when they put those things in, it's not just like, oh, we'll just put it right there and that's it. Like they put a lot of thought into a lot of those things, and even now, like we're balancing maps that are live because we're seeing a lot of data, and so it is definitely there's a lot of method to our madness for sure.
And then the other question is, it would have been really easy to just make classes for the game, right? You have your tracker, you have two busters and your trapper, right? But you decided to negate that. Was that something that came up at all? Like in your design that we could have classes, or were you always of each buster can do everything?
Yeah, I mean, I never saw a Ghostbusters film where, any of them are like, I can't do this, or Ray, you're the one that's carrying the trap. Like so many people are like, what about classes? What about classes? And I believe that games that have classes are necessary and they're great. But the thing about it is I've played many games, including asymmetrical games, where it's like there's a class and I play a specific character or style. And anytime that I play a game where there's those classes and someone takes that, character or style, it slows me down. And so I do feel like there's just things with those types of games that didn't make sense for what we're doing. But also in a multiplayer game, especially where it's about teamwork, there could be those scenarios where it's like, oh, I'm the tracker, I'm the tracker. And you can build the tracker. You can build the beefy, slower guy with, more gear and more, power to your pack. But like I feel that when you're building your character, like you're making your style of character, you're making the look of you, and then you go to your pack and you make that and you build that up, and then you go into a match and it's like, nope, you can't use that, choose something else, and you're like, well, what I do all this for, so I think that like building your specific play style is the most important. And then when you get into that high level, because I mean we have a lot of high level play tests, I'm seeing a lot of high level playing online, which is honestly, like the league and all that stuff is truly shocking to me, and it's really exciting. But the thing is like when you get to that high level of gameplay, that's when you're saying like, okay, I'm bringing this and I'm bringing that and I'm bringing the other thing, and there's a lot of plans with that to like quickly do those pieces. But I think for now, like for that, that beta level of gameplay, you need to have everything, because you don't know who's going to be helping you, and you need to be able to do those single ghost traps occasionally, because you could just have a bunch of sandbags on your team and you need to just do all the work yourself. And if one guy's the trap guy and he's in the back corner,
right,
looking for spores and molds, you're in trouble. So it's once again method to our madness.
No, I love the way you did, because I felt like that could have been a way you went, and you probably still could have made it work. But like Evolve comes to mind, where you had to have a trapper on that game to make the dome. If you didn't have that guy, you just weren't going to win. So it was almost like a requirement you had that person on your team, and it was not a good feeling to be forced to play that.
That was a lot of it, because there were a lot of people that were saying we should do classes, we should have a trapper. And it's like, please go play Evolve with a bad team.
Yeah, right.
Because I mean, that is just the thing. Video games where it's like one person needs to do one thing, and the other guy needs to do the other thing. Like, I've played games where it's like one guy needs to open the door and the other guy needs to open the door, and I've sat there for like 30 minutes. And this is my own friend going like, dude, go right here, and walking him over. And so like if you're catching a ghost and one guy happens to have a trap, you're in trouble. You're in absolute trouble. So.
Speaking to the gear, my friend, Chris, he's the head of our chapter in North California, and he's like the foremost expert on like what the gear is called, the names, the structure, all that good stuff. He says you've absolutely nailed every aspect of the equipment in terms of visual aesthetic, design, naming. Did you like what was that process like? Were you constantly working with Uncle Dan Aykroyd, and asking him how does this look okay? Would you call this? Did you get his stamp of approval on any of this stuff? Because you nailed it.
Man, the biggest Ghost Corps has their librarian Eric, and he has been a absolute joy to work with. Like, he's been the one that's like, here are these things, and even Jason Reitman, where he's come in and said, like, everything should look like it has had a life before it became a Ghostbusters piece of gear, and he said that to us, man, right, like, I think our first meeting, he was just looking at things, and we were showing him concepts. But like, Dan has been in the Great White North. He's come down and graced us on Zooms when he could. But like, the biggest thing that I can say that Dan said that was just amazing is when we were showing him, and when he was reading through the script, he said, "You guys nailed Ray. Like, you guys did Ray perfectly." He punched up some of the lines, and then he just, it was shocking how quickly he went through all of his VO, and just like that Ray cadence of just like da 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 da. And it was really rad getting him. But honestly, a lot of that stuff we're Ghostbusters fans, and we have really good concept artists, and we have really good design team, and anything that wasn't perfect, Ghost Corps like came in. And I mean, it's like the VAD, for example, it's like, hey, we need to have a grappling hook, and everyone's like, oh god, these guys are going to be like, bionic commandoing all over the place. And they said, this is really worrisome for us, because this is not very Ghostbusters. Like, no, this is. And we explained like why we needed it. We didn't want to have ramps of crap and stairs every single place. We wanted to have it so that a player could be that chaser and have that gear to do that. And so we really worked on that. That was a really, definitely a scrutinized product of like, okay, this is how it works. This is how slow it is. This is what it does. Da da da. And that was, the give and take of us with Ghost Corps. And so working with Ghost Corps was really rad, honestly. Like, Eric, once again, talking with him all the time, talked to him the other night, in fact, and he's literally the librarian of Ghostbusters. Like, he knows everything about it. He worked with Ivan for so long that, Ghost Corps, when they formed, he was, he is the guy. And so that was really amazing. And then Jason and Gil coming in, and Jason giving his, his 2 cents on a lot of these elements. And even Ivan would bring up these really great, things that we wanted to touch. And so it was definitely a team effort. But I do feel that like the reason why all that gear turned out the way it was is because it was, passionately scrutinized by a bunch of fans, but also, a massive team effort.
Yeah, I mean,
that's really cool. Sorry, but that's really cool to have like a hardcore, fan that has put a lot of his, life into it, call that out. And that was the greatest part, is when we were able to show people, having like, Jason from Ghostbuster News, or when we were in New York, having a bunch of like, gray suits coming in, and like they're in their gear, they take their gear off, and then they're playing the game, but then they're like noticing all of the things that we put throughout the firehouse. And it was, and when they were done, they're like, this is awesome. You killed it. So it's like, the most important thing for me was getting the fans, the guys that got the gray suits, that collect and really get into Ghostbusters, like actually saying this is awesome and this is making them happy. That was beyond huge.
Oh no, next October, man, you're gonna see your designs in chapters. Like the cart, the cryo thing, everything on the pack you're gonna see alternate wands. Like, everyone absolutely loves from all the chapters, loves all the designs, and they're already starting to build them now.
Wow, that's awesome. Life. That's beyond awesome. That's beyond
give it 12
awesome.
months, you'll start seeing them in the wild really quickly.
I'm beyond excited. I hope that we're able to get to more live events and have. I mean, we're not done. That's the crazy part. We're nowhere close to being done. It's going to be a very exciting year.
Always happy to hear a long roadmap ahead. That's always exciting to me. Because you get worried as games as a service, right? There's that expectation of like you come out, right? You're out for like barely a month, and people are like, more content, more content. You're like, we just came out. It took 4 years to get to this point. Just give us a few months.
And that's been literally, it's just like, I think I've said like, let's do it now, and you know, our Marcom team's like, you gotta wait because then if it is just that matter of like doling out information, doling out, you know, what we're doing next and further and further versus like, I want to show like everything that we've got going on. But it is just a matter of like, as soon as that's there, then everyone's wants it right now. So we have to be kind of diligent with like what we're dripping out, you know, throughout the year.
Now, before we start talking about the current build of the game, I do have one other hard question for you. Is the game canon? Does the game, because you have a story in it, all the gear is pretty spot on. Does this take place after Afterlife? Did anybody at Ghost Course stamp this and be like, yes, it's canon, like the 2009 game?
Okay, so it's being called tertiary canon. We had a big meeting with Jason and Gil, and we started working on the game before we ever knew, before we even read, we didn't even know what was going on. Yeah, like I said,
pre-Afterlife knowledge, right?
Yeah. So 2018, it's this game. You know, what we were doing was there, and we, you know, luckily enough, the game itself is ghostbusting, and so we had this big meeting. Jason and Gil got it. So I don't even think the movie was out yet. So
it wasn't.
We read the script in 2 years ago. No, about a year and a half. I don't even remember. 2 Christmases ago, we read the script. And then, you know, it was still deep COVID. And so the movie kept on getting pushed out. So we had the meeting of like, okay, this is now going to be canon. Jason and Gil want it to be, you know, right after Afterlife. And so we were like, okay, we need to change some elements. We, you know, changed a lot of dialogue. Luckily enough, we didn't record yet. But we were able to do, you know, the maneuvering to make it into this world where the game is roughly after Winston has come back to New York, rebuilt the fire station. That's why we redid that scene from the final part of the film. Was we wanted it to be like, okay, this is, you know, a couple weeks, maybe a month later, boom, there you go. And then, so it is tertiary. So it's up to Jason and Gil what they want to, you know, pull from this to their stuff for Firehouse. But yeah, it was just kind of one of those like, wait a minute, what? Like, we were kind of good having this being like disconnected, and now it's connected to it. And yeah, like we had no idea about, you know, any of the kids. We had no idea of any of the other, you know, cast members. And so we've been able to put things in, like if you go and, you know, listen to all of Ray's dialogue, he does talk about Phoebe. There's a like the post Afterlife. So yeah, we're right. Let's just say we're right in the middle.
And like sometimes it can come full circle, like you said, with like it's up to Jason, because in the 2009 game, Ivan and Dan said it's canon, and in Afterlife, Dan Aykroyd says he mentions a piece of gear that's only in the video game. So like it came kind of back around full circle. Like that could happen too. They could mention Kat and, you know, the other crew, you know, somewhere they're off somewhere doing something. You know, that would
believe me. If Jason and Gil take anything, I'm just gonna be giddy. Like it just like, you know, the great part is like, you know, what they're doing is going to be rad. I think that they're both super cool. I was actually like, I was able to, you know, hang out with Gil a little bit, and he's a fan. He's a massive fan. Like, you know, Jason bringing Gil onto it is probably one of the best people that he could have brought into that circle. And so like, you know, the two of those guys are really rad. But if they don't use anything, I'm still excited for Firehouse. If even there's a tip of if there's even just the slightest thing where I could freeze from, you like, oh my God, like, you know, like I guarantee you the entire team are going to just be screaming like, you know, school kids. You know, it is exciting for us to see what they do for sure.